the first day of July, and it's also the last 6 months of the year. First of all, my name is ThreePlusKei. I am ThreePlusKei, your favorite social worker. Welcome back. I just wanted to encourage you with these last 6 months. Today, evaluate where you are with your goals that you made January 1st. If you're not satisfied with your progress, you can reset starting today, and I just highly encourage you to do that. Don't just think about it, but write it down and then put it somewhere. Some of my goals are my screensaver on both my phone and my work laptop, right? So you have to make it happen. There's some YouTuber, her whole tagline is nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to save you. And in this field of social work that I'm in, sometimes circumstances happen that really beat you down in life, and it's just not fair. And you were doing all the things, like, for instance, if your house burns down, you're just a normal person, you're raising your family, you know what I mean, and your house burns down. So all your stuff is gone, but your family is still intact, but you're in charge of your family, right? So that is stressful. But there is a lot of grace that the Lord gave you in that you still have your family, which doesn't take away from the house being burnt down. So there's a recognition of that. Everyone I know is still alive. I cannot stress that enough. If your people are alive, there's another day. There's another day to spend with them. And that's really the most valuable thing. If you have good health, that's another really strong asset you might have. But anyway, if something happens to you and you didn't deserve it, you got to pivot. You got to pivot. You got to acknowledge that this really sucks. Maybe even take a few moments to grieve, you know. If something came out of it like depression or anxiety, then you've got to continue with depression and anxiety. We've got this thing kind of in our society right now that if you're depressed and anxious, you get to just stop, and everybody is very understanding of that. But since COVID, say this all the time, since COVID, we are all depressed and anxious. So we can't cater to one people or a few people who want to say this, that, or the other, or I have time blindness, so I've got to be accommodated and you've got to accept it. It's like, what's going to happen is there's somebody who has these things that doesn't make excuses. So it'll always be that person over you and your excuses, right? I wish I could post it. I don't even really remember her name, but there's a YouTube channel I watch, and it's the anti-HR lady. And she used to be obviously in HR, and she is telling everybody she got sick of it, the lack of integrity of being an HR person. And she's spilling the secrets, right? And so go check out her channel. It's very wise advice. The takeaway is no one's like special, and you kind of put a target on your back when you want to be treated special. With that said, create your goals. Create your goals so that you stand out. I'm telling you, the average person does not create their goals and then writes it down for reference. And even fewer than that will act on their goals, and even fewer than that will act on their goals consistently. Today is the first day of the last 6 months of the year. You can pivot. Go ahead and pivot. With that said, one of my pivots is 6 a.m. be 6 a.m.ing for me, and I'm rushing around the house. And we talked last week about the wisdom in having quiet time in the morning. So now from 6 o'clock to 6:10, I just sit here. That's the plan. Just sit here with my coffee and think about how I plan to move about the world today. So that's why it's at 6:10 now. And that'll be that. And we will wrap this thing up sharp at 6:30. So the format, which may change too, 5 minutes. I just let you know what's going on in my life, da-da-da-da-da-da. The next 10 minutes, which we're into right now, we're going over what we have been going over in the book of Joshua and read some more, learn some more. And the last 5 minutes, if there are any comments, I will address that, because addressing comments in real time, that ain't it. If there aren't any, we'll just keep going until 6:30, but we're going to wrap this thing up clean every day at 6:30. It might even be abrupt at some points. But that's what's going to be happening. So with that said, we are in the book of Joshua. We are studying biblical leadership, leading with biblical principles. We are in verse 15. Lastly, we were in Joshua chapter 6, verses 1 through 14. The takeaway was verses 2 through 5. And the question that came out of that was, when was a time in your life that the Lord undeniably worked on your behalf? Like you were shocked, bamboozled, and stood in awe by what the Lord did in your life. We've all had those moments, whether the world might call it like, the universe is talking to me. It's like, nah, that's God. Okay, so what had happened in 1 through 14? The gates of Jericho locked down, thick fortress. The Lord said to Joshua, tell these folks, march around this joint 1 time per day for 7 days. They did that 6th day. And then what you're going to do on that 7th day, you're going to march around 7 times. You're going to give a holler. You're going to give a big old holler. And then you're going to see. That's what the Lord said. So they did that 7th day. 6 days, they do this. On the 7th day, that's where we're coming into on verse 15. The book of Joshua, verse 15. On the 7th day, it's about to get real. On the 7th day, they got up at daybreak and marched around the city 7 times in the same manner, except that on that day they circled the city 7 times. The 7th time around, when the priest sounded the trumpet blast, Joshua commanded the army, it's time to pop off. Shout, for the Lord has given you the city. Verse 17. The city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord. Only Rahab the prostitute and all, because that was a promise, and all who are with her in her house shall be spared, because she hid the spies we sent. But keep away from the devoted things, so that you will not bring about your own destruction by taking any of them. Otherwise, you will make the camp of Israel liable to destruction and bring trouble on it. All the silver and gold and the articles of bronze and iron are sacred to the Lord and must go into his treasury. Remember that. When the trumpet sounded, the army shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed. So everyone charged straight in, and they took the city. They devoted the city to the Lord and destroyed with the sword every living thing in it, men and women, young and old, cattle, sheep, and donkeys. Don't get any feelings about it. They knew it was about to happen. The commentary for verses 17 through 21. Why did God demand that the Israelites destroy almost everyone and everything in Jericho? He was carrying out severe judgment against the wickedness of the Canaanites. This kind of judgment, called a ban, usually required that everything is destroyed. Because of their evil practices and intense idolatry, the Canaanites were a stronghold of rebellion against God. They weren't listening. They don't know how to listen. This threat to the right kind of living God required had to be removed. If not, it would affect and spread throughout all Israel like cancer. A few people and some items in Jericho were not destroyed, but these were special cases. Rahab, remember Rahab? Rahab and her household were saved because she had faith in God and because she helped the Israelite spies. The silver and gold and articles of bronze and iron were also preserved, not to enrich the people, but to beautify the tabernacle and its services. All these jewels, not to get rich, but to be a testament to how good the Lord is. That's, you got to think about that when you put the diamonds on your Jesus piece. It's okay to have the diamonds on your Jesus piece, but what is it a reflection of? God's purpose in all of this was to keep the people's faith and religion uncontaminated. He did not want the plunder to remind Israel of Canaanite practices. God also wants us to be pure. He wants to cleanse us from our sin and idolatry when we begin our new lives with him. We must not let the desire for personal gain distract us from our spiritual purpose. That's a word. We must also reject any objects or images that remind us of our old lives of rebellion against God. That one's for me. That one's for me. I like gangster rap. I do. I do. Still, I do. All right. For information on how Israel was told to handle plunder in a different situation, see the note on Numbers 31, verses 25 through 30. We all have points of retaining something from our old lives. It's true. And I think the question is, right? If we're like, what is it? It must be some type of comfort. So using myself, I do like all the gangster rap. Not anytime, but when I'm in like a mood. And I know I'm not alone, which is why I'm being transparent about it. Everybody has their thing, right? And it's just, I mean, that's a question for you to answer on your own. Why do we insist on holding on to things that represent our old life, right? Anyway, verse 22. Joshua said to the two men who had spied out the land, "Go into the prostitute's house and bring her out, bring them out, bring them out, bring her out, and all who belong to her in accordance with your oath to her. So the young men who had done the spying went in and brought out Rahab, her father and mother, her brothers and sisters, and all who belonged to her. Why? Because Rahab was like, I saved y'all's lives. You need to save my life in return. But she didn't stop there. She was a prostitute, so a little bit of a hustler. And she was like, my mama, my daddy, my brothers, my sisters, my cousins, the dog. And they were like, bet. So that's why it's this whole list of people. It's not just her. And I think there's something to be said for being in proximity to someone who practices godliness. I'm just going to say it again, just for myself. There is value in being in proximity to someone who maybe even who practices godliness. And I mean that to say like upholds strong morals, who upholds truth and wisdom. Excuse me. So I don't know if anybody I don't know who, if the people watching this, if you're believers, there's a good chance you have people around you who are not believers. Even in the past week. And it happens all the time since I started doing these lives, actually. I live in Montana, and people I know. I used to kick it with y'all. Old homies, old friends, not believers. Now they want to go to church. They want to, you know what I mean? I don't get, nobody offers me alcohol, nobody. And to that point, when we kick it, when we hang out, nobody really even is, I mean, it happens, but it's more and more uncommon that people even like drink around me, smoke around me, do the whoop-de-whoop around me. And you can, but who I am and how I conduct myself, it rubs off. And the flip side of that is watch the company that you keep too. But stay with your intentional faith walk so that people can witness that behavior. It's your own obedience with the Lord, but people are watching you too. It's very, very important, right? And it's interesting. Let's see. They brought out her entire family and put them in a place outside the camp of Israel. This is about to take a turn. Then they burned down the whole city and everything in it. But they put the silver and gold and the articles of bronze and iron into the treasury of the Lord's house. But Joshua spared Rahab the prostitute with her family and all who belonged to her, because she hid the men Joshua had sent as spies to Jericho, and she lives among the Israelites to this day. There's just a little itty bitty bit left. Verse 26. At that time, Joshua pronounced this solemn oath. Cursed before the Lord is the one who undertakes to rebuild this city, Jericho. He's like, don't do it. Don't rebuild it. At the cost of his firstborn, he will lay its foundations. At the cost of his youngest, he will set up its gates. So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame spread throughout the land because he was successful in that conquering. The commentary, the curse was fulfilled in 1 Kings 16:34 when a man named Heyyyy rebuilt Jericho and consequently, lost his oldest and youngest sons. Some believe that Heyyyy actually sacrificed his sons and placed... That was genuine. Excuse me. Some believe that Heyyyy actually sacrificed his sons and placed them in the foundation and gate masonry to ward off evil. Don't build Jericho. Once you leave, once the Lord destroys the wickedness in your life, don't you go back. As Genuine starts to play. We out here trying, y'all. Anyway, it is 6:30. We gon' leave it. I did not open with prayer. I apologize with that about that. We're gonna cut it off abruptly right here. I am 3+Kei, your favorite social worker. Be intentional in your kindness today. Make sure you pursue the smile so others can witness you doing so, baby. All right. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. We're trying to make it to 500 in July. Subscribe to this channel. Share it if you've already subscribed. Like, and comment. I'll talk to you later.